Danielle Kane, Masks for Canada. And Danielle's also on the coalition that I belong to, and she does an incredible amount of advocacy work. And you're all grateful to have her on the team. Thanks, Danielle. Over to you.
Thank you so much. Okay, so my segment of this presentation today is, of course, on masks, and I'm a big advocate on improving our masks. So that's what I'm going to discuss today. Okay. So first things first, I think Kevin already presented this clever wheel here that shows the different ways that we can detect, contain, and prevent COVID-19 transmission. So of course, I'm going to be focusing on the face masks portion of this wheel, though each portion plays its own special role. And just to provide a bit of background here, just to speak to the situation in Ontario anyways, and transmission within schools, as of today, I just pulled up the stats just a little before this meeting, we actually have 1,484 school-related COVID-19 cases for this province alone that have been reported as of August 2nd, 2021, when they started reporting cases for this new school year. I think there's been a common misunderstanding among some circles that school transmission is either not happening or it's quite rare. That is, I think, very egregious misinformation, as I'm sure most people here would agree with. And I really want to kind of set that tone for what's happening right now to kind of also lead into what we can continue to do about it. So I think, Jim earlier talked about the filtration aspect, cleaning the air, ways that we can help improve classroom air quality in that way. And face masks, are again another layer of protection that we can use for children, staff, everyone who is doing in-class learning at least. Three of the 4 F's in terms of improving your mask. So it's fit, filter, and function. So a good mask obviously has to fit the face well. You want to make sure that the material is high filtration. So sometimes in Canada, we refer to something called 95 PFE or 95 particle filtration efficiency. And basically what that refers to is the ability of the material to filter out 95% of at least non-oil aerosols. So if you think of, for example, an N95, the material that makes the N95 filter so well is that 95 PFE material. But again, your ability to protect yourself using masks relies on a proper fit. So it has to be, essentially, it's a gradient showing from cloth masks or looser fitting cloth masks to different styles of surgical masks, respirators, the ear loop style or the head strap style respirators, all the way to elastomeric respirators, which are those reusable, almost gas mask looking types of masks that you'll see some people using. And we can talk about that in a bit in terms of resources for those.
Daniel, this is on the Masks for Canada website, isn't it?
Yes.
For any of you who want to actually go to Masks for Canada, and you can actually see this graphic and maybe share a link to that graphic as well. And it is a really great infographic. So I just thought I'd add that.
It is. So I would highly encourage, I think I also put a link on the sidebar there to the Masks for Canada website. We have essentially everything that I'm speaking about today, as well as the infographics will be there and resources to find better masks. One of the other F's here is function. So of course, I mean, a mask is not useful if you're not wearing it, right? So it has to be something, especially for children, that they are going to be wearing consistently and that's comfortable for them. And that has some breathability to it as well, of course, right? So
sorry, I just wanted to interject again, because it is a really good point you're making. And Patricia Phillips just put a link to that graphic in the chat site. So for those of you who want to actually see the graphic while Daniel's talking, you can actually see the link as well. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. So that's really easy it's a lot better to follow along with. I'm so sorry that this is not loading. So anyhow, essentially going with these 3 F's will get you a much better mask that I think will give you a better shot at protecting yourself and also preventing aerosols as much as possible from infecting other people. The fourth F that we sometimes talk about is fashion. So I think that kind of goes along perhaps with function as well, in terms of, is it something comfortable and it's something that someone is willing to wear? And with a wide variety of new masks coming out, especially Canadian-made masks, there's a wide variety of different respirators, ear loop, or the head strap style as well, that people are more willing to wear. Just as an example, I took an ear loop style. Oh, why is this not sharing? I took an ear loop style of respirator from one Canadian company here just to show. It's quite easy for me to put on. I'll just display here. Goes over my ears like that. I just mold the nose, the metal bit over my nose there. And it's not a frightful sight. I think most people, it looks quite it's quite convenient to use, and I think most people are willing to wear masks such as this, which actually fit my face significantly better, and the filtration is excellent. Now, the one thing again that I'll note is this is an ear loop design, so that doesn't mean that I don't get a good fit, but a better fit would be a head strap design respirator that actually holds the mask itself closer to your face. So I'm just going to go to the next slide here. And again, unfortunately, my images, for some reason, are not popping up. But anyways, specifically talking about masks for children, so PHAC, or the Public Health Agency of Canada, does recommend masking for children for ages 2 and up. They recommend supervision for mask wearing for children between the ages of 2 and 5. But essentially, even young children, so toddlers, 2 years old and up, can generally mask quite and tolerate it quite reasonably. But ultimately, you want to choose a mask that your child will keep on, because at the end of the day, any mask is still better than no mask, especially in an indoor situation, where air quality may not be as great as outdoors. But even at that, if your child is able to tolerate, for example, an ear loop style of respirator, which now some Canadian companies do have smaller sizes that they offer for children, I would really recommend upping the mask game to something of that style. Again, so long as it's something that your child will wear. But anything that can offer your child better fit or filtration does also offer them better protection, and in turn, better prevention of spread of aerosols and basically anything emitted from their nose or their mouth. Okay, and unfortunately, again, only one of my images is showing here. But one option that I want to go over with people is the idea of the mask brace or the mask fitter. Sometimes it's called a badger seal as well. Not everyone might have access to a respirator style mask, whether that's the ear loop or the traditional head strap style respirator. So in that case, if you do have, let's say, an ASTM approved surgical or procedure mask, you can use these fitters over top of that mask to really improve the fit. Because remember, we're going to have some filtration from that type of material, but the fit is really going to be crucial to make sure that you're not having leakage from the sides of these masks as well. So there are actually a variety of ready-made or ready-for-purchase mask fitters that just conveniently go over your mask and tie at the back of your head. Or there's also a DIY option as well that's actually quite a bit more economical for people as well. And that design is courtesy of the University of Wisconsin. I do have a link here. If anyone does have the link handy and wants to share it, that's great, but it will also be on our Masks for Canada resource page, which I'll talk about at the end of the presentation. And again, you can click on that there. And this, this mask brace option, again, quite budget friendly. And it's just one way of really improving what you already have. So I do have this page, thankfully, everything stayed on this page, all of my graphics. But as I was talking about Masks for Canada, we do have an excellent resource page. And so if you go onto masksforcanada.org and you see where I've highlighted the Up Your Mask Game section, essentially everything that I'm talking about today can be found on that website, including the really great 3F diagram that I wish I could have walked you through a little bit more closely for this presentation. We have a lot of great FAQs, tutorials, as well as other infographics. And I think what seems most, one of the biggest draws of this page for a lot of people is the resources. So we have a really great vetted directory of different, specifically Canadian made in many cases, PPE or personal protective equipment that's available for purchase. And again, this includes surgical or procedure masks and respirator style masks, as well as elastomerics, which I briefly touched on. Those are generally those reusable respirator bodies that you buy the disposable filters for. And those can actually be quite eco-friendly and budget-friendly overall. And there are some great Canadian options that are also offered through that resource as well. So I would really encourage everyone to visit this website. Again, just basically puts into writing what I've been talking about and different ways to improve your masks. We also have some other ideas. You know, if you're struggling to find masks that fit your child properly, you know, let's say you do find some of these ear loop style respirator masks for your child, but it's still not a great fit on the child, or it's not as well sealed as you would like it to be. You know, there are other recommendations. You can tie the ear loops off to make it a little bit tighter. There are also ear savers that you can purchase as well that kind of turn the ear loops into more of a head strap style that goes behind the child's head. And so there are many different options that people have to really improve the masks that you have, or improve the masks that you're able to access. And I think beyond that, that is everything that I have in terms of what I wanted to present today. Again, I'm very sorry that some of my graphics were not coming up, but I would like to open the floor to any questions or anything that I may have missed from anyone that has them right now.
Thank you very much, Danielle. That's a really great presentation, great information that you shared. I also put a link in the chat box to a YouTube channel, Alberta Protect Our Province. So they've been providing lots of information via Joe Vipon's lead there. So last night they actually had Dr. Jen McDonald do some demonstrations around masks as well. I just want to ask you what your thinking is in front of our audience. You know, there seems to be a move internationally, you know, like looking at Germany, where they're really promoting the use of respirators for the general public. I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts on that.
Thank you for sharing that, first of all, whoever's sharing this this infographic here. So actually, that's a lot of these models, whether it's Germany or Austria even, have been quite successful in terms of, and they've been largely ahead of the curve. I think in Austria, for example, it was earlier this year, I believe it was February, that they started mandating what's called FFP2, or it's somewhat an N95 equivalent in Europe, for the public to be wearing, at least in public spaces, like on public transportation, in shopping centers, etc. And to my knowledge, it has been helping, it's been rather successful in helping to lower the transmission rate in these countries. But also, I think one of the biggest wins in this strategy was their ability to distribute these tools effectively. So this was, you know, there was proper subsidization from the government, as well as certain businesses too. I think there's a supermarket chain in Austria called Spar, and actually they participated in providing free FFP2 respirator masks to the public for a certain period of time to anyone that was entering their stores. So because most people do need to get groceries at some point, this was a really great distribution point. And I think that my understanding is compliance was quite high because there were penalties for not wearing these higher grade masks as a result of this mandate. So, so long as you have a good distribution channel set up, and that there's especially domestic supply, that's really important as well as a policy framework as well that's put into this. When you have those three key points, it becomes a lot easier to really encourage the public to use better protection and encourage them to take this up. And I think it's well within our capability here in Canada to be able to do that, especially since many of our own Canadian PPE producers here have a lot of stock now and can certainly scale up their stock, with proper support. I think that a Canadian program could be similarly valuable. But again, we do have to have those pieces in place, especially policy.
Great, very important point. Thank you so much, Danielle, and thanks for giving us your time presenting.